Am I on?
You're on.
Okay, my name is Don Greenbaum, 92 years old, World War II veteran. Came out of high school, and 10 days later, my 18th age, 18 years old, I was drafted to the United States Army. I was drafted in 1943.
Okay.
The war started in 41.
Right.
So I came in when we were just getting started, really, because we weren't involved for a long time. We finally got involved with England and France.
Right.
So, but I'll tell you, every guy in my class wanted to go in.
Right.
And if a guy was 4F, if it was turned down, he was heartbroken, really. Because there was no one, he was home by himself. All the guys were in. You know, when you're fighting one enemy, which is Germany, and we had a purpose because they were going to try and conquer the world. It's so different than fighting now in Iraq, Afghanistan, and all. It's a whole different world. It's not our world. This was our world. You know, we had to protect our country. And it was a patriotic war. All the guys wanted to go because we had one enemy, the Germans. And it was a real rah-rah war. We were patriotic. I started my initial basic training in Fort Rucker, Alabama. I learned how to dig a hole, a trench, clean my rifle, how to march, and over the doorway was a slogan that said, "Kill or be killed." Age of 18, I've been trained to kill people, like many, many other GIs. And my training took me from Fort Rucker to Fort Riley, Kansas, and I ended up in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where I was trained to be a radio technician, and eventually became a Fort Observer. Now, a Fort Observer in the artillery is that you go ahead of the outfit, you locate the enemy, find the enemy, and radio back the coordinates so our artillery could wipe them out, hopefully. It was a 105 howitzer division, 3 companies, 12 howitzers, and we were trained to do our job. Ended up in Wales, England. We came into Utah Beach after the invasion, and that was when I noticed that war was on. We saw the body bags, we saw the wounded, the deaths, the ambulances, and now we knew our training was over, and we were really at war. And we were in combat for 236 continuous days, fighting through France, Belgium, Holland, Luxembourg, into Germany. And every town we hit, we were liberating them. We were the heroes, and waving American flags and giving us kisses and wine and flowers and welcoming the Americans, of course, because we're liberating them from Nazi control. Hit the German border, things got tough. But now the German army was really supporting and protecting their own country. So that was a very, very slow movement, mile by mile, hour by hour, week by week. And all went well until November 9th, 1944, in Aachen, Germany. I was wounded. I ended up in a field hospital about 3 weeks. I was recuperating. This happened in November. I was sent to Paris for some R&R. Which were really nice, and I got a phone call. I was told to come back to my outfit. The Germans were building up a big counterattack. So I was sent back into action. The Battle of the Bulge, which is known now, started December 15th, ended January 16th. After the Battle of the Bulge, we went on to our next operation, and we were told to go to Munich. As we got about an hour outside of so-called Dachau, which is supposed to be a supply depot, a tremendous odor hit us. The guys were throwing up. It was horrible. To this day, 71 years later, I can still identify that odor, not knowing what it was. No one did. As we got closer, the sky turned black. Like the sun disappears, the sky disappeared, everything disappeared. We knew what it was. And now we found about 15 boxcars full of dead, naked bodies. The odor was from their bodies. Unbelievable. Now here I am, 20 years old now. This is like 2 years later, after I was inducted into the Army, and the first thing I see, these dead bodies laying out there, not knowing who they were, what they were. We had no idea about a concentration camp. Never heard the expression death camp. We marched in and we found out later that the black sky was caused by the crematoriums. When we entered Dachau at that particular time, the guards had dropped their guns and left. They tried to escape, knowing the Americans were there, and those who could mingle with the prisoners in a prison-type garment, which was a striped-type pajama-like garment, the prisoners recognized them and killed them. So we took no prisoners at that particular time. We were there about 2 days, and we found thousands and thousands of people. We didn't know who they were. The languages were so different we couldn't identify any of them. Luckily, one of our men spoke Yiddish, which is like Polish, and he said, "We're American soldiers." And the word got around. They were screaming and screaming. They wanted to hug us, they wanted to kiss us, and it was just unbelievable. Now, they were liberated, but they had nowhere to go. A lot of them left the camp and came back in the camp because they had nowhere to go. And we couldn't feed them. If we fed these poor guys who weighed about 85 pounds, they would die. So we radioed back to the troops behind us and said, "Bring soft food, blankets, and medicine. We came across something you will not believe." Thousands and thousands of men walking around weighing about 80, 85 pounds. The next week, May 8th, the war was over. So we started our trek home. It took me 6 months to get home, and life went on. A little fast forward, I had the GI Bill, went to college, got married, had a family, life went on. Never looking back. The biggest thing that I'll never forget, and I can't even have a handle really, is how these German officers would go home at night and kiss their kids goodnight, have a great meal with the wife and kiss her goodnight, and knowing the next day they could go out and kill people they didn't even know. That we lost 6 million people. We lost 1 million children, 2 million women, and 3 million men. Generations and generations of Jews murdered only because of their religion. I never had a problem in the Army.
Never.
There was one instance where we were out at night patrol as forward observers. We came in and one fella called another friend of mine, a Jewish guy, a dirty Jew. And I'm 18 years old and I remember that. And I pulled my revolver out of the guy's head and I said, "You apologize to Irv, I'm going to kill you." And he apologized to Irv. Irv didn't even know why. But I was, when you're 18 years old and you're trained, that kind of training, I just automatically, I wouldn't have killed under that, but threatened him. But I had no problems at all in the Army with that. Never had problems in school with it either. I grew up in Winfield, Pennsylvania, which was 99% Jewish. So I was like sheltered in a Jewish world. And going to Dickinson, which I chose on my own because it's a small school, 800 students, it was great. I never had a problem there either. So in my 92 years, I never had a Jewish problem.
Can you tell me again the story about the Union League, right?
Union League?
Yeah.
Well, I know that Union League was strictly, Jews were forbidden to join, or probably to have dinner or lunch there. A friend of mine who was born the same day, same year as I was in the Army, named Hunk Gebert, invited me to lunch there for my 21st birthday. So March 10th, 1946, I had lunch there. And I'm speaking there in April, 71 years later. It's ironic. But now they allow Jewish people to join the club, like Married Country Club, same thing. They take in Jews now. But a personal story. My grandfather wanted to join Philmont Country Club, a Jewish country club. And they only accepted German Jews. They would not accept American Jews. So my grandfather and his brother in 1919 started Green Valley Country Club, which is a non-sectarian, but it's primarily a Jewish club. Yeah. It's ironic. We had anti-Semitism among our own people. That's a killer. It really was.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Interesting story, though. I was a cheerleader in college, captain of cheerleaders. So this is me with prior to going into the Army. This is just a collage. My college graduation. I'm carrying the American flag at military school. I was captain of cheerleaders here.
So did you think like other Americans, did your family back home, were you writing to them? Did they know what was going on?
They
What
really
you were
didn't.
doing?
You know, my brother was he was fighting on the other end of the world. My parents had both been a part of World War One, so they had a pretty good idea what I was up against. But we had no idea. About 50 years after I was out of the Army, I'm going back in the 90s now, that I got out in 1946. A denier on TV said it never happened, the Holocaust. So I called Gratz College, which is predominantly a Jewish college. I said, I want to tell my story. I want to talk about it. I really got I called Gratz College immediately. And there were like 6 of us who spoke that night. One was an African-American guy, one was an Italian guy, and we all had the same experience. We all experienced the odor from the bodies. We all experienced the black sky from the crematoriums. So I started to speak about the Holocaust to a group here, a group there, and again, time went on. Well, my wife read an article for a local newspaper called the Jewish Exponent. And in the Exponent, she mentioned that I was in World War II, and I was wounded in Aachen, Germany, got a Purple Heart as a forward observer for the artillery. And we entered, and I was one of the liberators at Dachau concentration camp. And it was printed in the Exponent. Well, somebody saw the article in Northeast Philadelphia and called me and says, a man in our congregation named Ernie Gross who would like to meet you. He was a survivor of Dachau. I said, guys, what's his number? I called Ernie, and we called him. My wife and I went to meet he and his son at Tiffany Diner up on the boulevard, had a great lunch together, hugging and very emotional. And for the past 8 years, Ernie and I have been speaking about the Holocaust together. Ernie, you'll hear his story, is not bitter, tells some great jokes, has 3 sons. He buried 2 wives. One died from Alzheimer's, one from cancer. Neither wife knew his camp. He didn't know their camps. They never discussed it. And we talk almost every day. We have a very close relationship. We spoke at Central High School last year of the top class, 90 students, and no one knew who Eisenhower was. So if they aren't teaching American history, they're not teaching Jewish history. All we hope for is we give our speeches. If it's students, go home and tell another student. If it's a parent, go home and tell your kids. If you're a kid, go home and tell your parents what you heard today, to keep the story going. Otherwise, the deniers are going to have a ball. They're going to say it never happened. You know, very few of us are left. We're losing like 500 GIs a day. There were 16 million, we're down to 1 million. So another 10 years, there'll be no GIs left to tell a story, any story. So that gives a capsule of my Army, and there's so much more involved, of course. I was lucky, I was honored by the French government, their highest award. I was awarded Purple Heart, like I said, and life has been good to me so far. This is the highest honor they give Americans from the French government.
And what's that called?
I don't know, I forget.
It's in
I
French.
forget.
That's okay.
We went down with my 2 grandsons, and they presented me with this medal, which is nice. So this is my Purple Heart, which I'll show, which I could hold up and show, which I'm very proud of. Mm-hmm. And if you want pictures of Dachau, this is what people said never happened. These are the boxcars. There were 15 or 20 of them just lined up. The people in the town said they had no idea. They had to know. They came in full, went out empty. And the odor was so bad they had to identify the odor also. So that's what we found in Dachau. Those who deny it said it was a fake.
Who took these pictures?
Our medic, I didn't carry a camera, but he did. And he sent me a copy, and I show them, depends who I'm speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
If it's young kids, I don't pass them around.
Right.
But people want to see them, I pull them out. We've gone back, the History Channel sponsored a trip and took Ernie, myself, and my wife and his son back to Dachau. I was very disappointed. They took down the barbed wire, they took down the towers, machine gun towers, they took down the barracks. It was like Central Park. And kids are playing around. The only thing left was the crematorium and the gas chamber. Where Birkenau, Auschwitz, they have a big museum with the shoes, the glasses, everything they stole from the Jews. And that was very impressive. Dachau does have a place we all sang Hatikva, we all had a prayer, but it wasn't the same, of course. It was 70 years ago. I would never go back to Germany, ever, ever, ever. But
Why is
they
that?
invited us back, and we said, first class, come on down. So we went.
Okay.
We had a wonderful time. It's funny, I met a school teacher who was our bus driver. She had two children, had two sons. One son said he felt so ashamed what his grandparents were involved in. And the other one said, I don't care, they did nothing wrong.
Wow.
So here, raised in the same family, one son said, the hell with it. One son said I was embarrassed by it.
Wow.
But you have those experiences, I'm 92, Ernie's 86, 10 years we'll both be gone, and then the story will die. And that's why we're here tonight, every night, to tell our story. Whoever will listen, we're ready to tell the story.